FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. Today's May 16th, 2017. Well, unless you've been buried or away from the news cycle for the past week, the talk is all about the unceremonious discharge of James Comey, director of the FBI, and the implications, what it means. What does it mean? Well, Professor Alain Sanders is with us now. Professor, you're over at St. Peter's University in my old town of Jersey City. Welcome back.
Thank you, Kerry. It's a pleasure to be with you again.
All right, so what does the Comey firing mean? What are the implications?
Well, the implications are that perhaps the investigation is getting close to Trump or some of his advisors. That's certainly the suggestion that many people are making. Why would you get rid of the FBI director at this time, and with a series of shifting explanations throughout the week? It leaves the impression that the president fired him because of other reasons than the public reasons. And what other reasons might there be? Well, the FBI is the agency that's investigating the Russia connection, if there is one, and to get rid of the top leader at this point raises a whole lot of suspicion.
Well, there's other explanations as well, that Comey wouldn't investigate the leaks that have taken place on the unmasking of various private individuals at the time. And this was clearly a felony that took place, and he had no interest. He hadn't interviewed anybody or taken it seriously. There's also the implication of the second in charge, who will shortly not be in charge of the FBI, Mr. McCabe, whose wife ran for Congress in the great state of Virginia, who received from Terry McAuliffe and the DNC $700,000 for her campaign at the very same time that the FBI was supposed to be investigating Hillary Clinton, and basically nothing done about this guy. He's in charge of the Clinton investigation. And then there were rumors of a meeting that took place at the FBI, higher ups there, including McCabe, who led the meeting, who said, first we F Flynn, then we F Trump. And a number of these agents were purportedly disturbed. So there's a lot of other explanations besides the fact that this illusory Russiagate, which there's never been any evidence that Trump is implicated in it or had anything to do with it, was the cause of this. And all of which,
Kerry, suggests that there's need for a special prosecutor. I didn't say that Trump was implicated, but there's certainly indications that his aides have been implicated. Certainly there's the Flynn episode, and there are other allegations. If you really want to get down to the bottom of this, then clearly the FBI is not the place to go. It's a special prosecutor.
Right.
And that's what many people are suggesting should be done.
Exactly. A special prosecutor to look into all the election issues, as well as Hillary Clinton's foundation, as well as the numerous crimes that may have been committed. I mean, just yesterday, Professor, the private investigator retained by Seth Rich's family, who is a DNC employee who was mysteriously gunned down in the streets of Washington, said he was talking to WikiLeaks. So let's get all this stuff on the table. Let's not just Russiagate that there's been no evidence proffered. Let's take a look at the Clinton operation. Let's take a look at the entire election, because there was a lot of mysterious happenings and a lot of things that took place during this election that need a special prosecutor.
Well, I mean, I think you're taking it too lightly. There's no evidence about Russiagate. All of the intelligence agencies have indicated that Russia was involved in disinformation and in the leak of materials from the DNC. There's much evidence that Russia has been doing the same thing in the elections in France and in Germany. So there's a lot of evidence that some nefarious doings are going on, and that Russia is basically trying to influence the electoral process of democracies. Russia has been known for years to engage in disinformation. And now with the capacities of the internet and all the technological elements that go with it, there's plenty of evidence that Russia is up to no good. So I think, yes, there's a need for a special prosecutor, but I wouldn't say there's no evidence. There's certainly lots of evidence, or at least lots of suggestions of evidence, and one needs to go and find out what's what.
There's never been any evidence proffered by any of these 17 intelligence agencies about this. They've not put forward anything. And when you ask them, well, where's the evidence? It's trust us, take our word, like you did for Iran, like you did, for Iraq, weapons of mass destruction, like you did for the Gulf of Tonkin. I mean, these intelligence agencies, their first order of business is to deceive, whether it's us at home or our adversaries abroad. They are deceptive entities whose word cannot be taken for anything.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, Kerry. I think their words can be taken for some things. If there's anybody who is the master of spin, it's always the person in the White House. There are many things that Donald Trump, there are many things that Barack Obama, there are many things that Bill Clinton, there are many things that George Bush have said that
Absolutely.
have been less than the truth. So I do agree with you that we need to get it to a special prosecutor, but I wouldn't rush to any conclusions about who's lying and who's not lying. There are many things involved with the Trump administration pertaining to business deals and pertaining to taxes and pertaining to this latest development now today, what may or may not have been said in the White House Oval Office with the ambassador and the foreign minister of Russia, that need further investigation. I agree with you that we can't conclude until we get down to the bottom of it, but there's plenty of evidence on all sides, including most notably, since the Trump administration is now in control of the executive branch, that there are many things that the Trump administration is saying that is contradictory, that doesn't stand up, and that requires much more investigation. So yeah, a special prosecutor is the way to go, and it seems to me that we should wait until those results are in rather than sort of speculate about what may or may not have happened.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of rumors on both sides, but no evidence. You know, we have Clapper, who's got an issue, an axe to grind with Trump. We have all of these former administrative officials in the last administration who have deliberately leaked information. We have Sally Yates. We have the other woman whose name eludes me right now, who admitted she was under Secretary of State, Deputy Secretary of State, who admitted that they were unmasking this data and that they were monitoring the Trump campaign. So let's get it all out there. Let's have a special prosecutor. Oh, absolutely.
I'm not sure it's all that precise.
She admitted.
You also have to take into account that you've got a president that speaks about truthful hyperbole and alternative facts. When you have a president talking that way, certainly it raises questions about what his allegations and what his statements and how truthful those statements are. Anybody who tells you I believe in truthful hyperbole, you got to have a little concern about what he actually means, right?
Alternative facts, okay, was said by Kellyanne Conway, an attorney. And when you're having an argument in court, the plaintiff has their proposed set of facts and the defendant has their proposed set of facts. And that whole thing got twisted. But truthful hyperbole, what is hyperbole, right? I agree with you there. But look, this woman admitted that they were monitoring Trump's campaign. It's come out. There's not even a question that his campaign was monitored. Really not. Mike Rogers, who is the head of the NSA, had a meeting with Trump. And what happened? They moved out all of their operations out of Trump Tower the next day. Now, I'll go back to probably a major hero of American politics, FDR, who was the first one to say, in politics, there are no coincidences. So Trump was being monitored. There's no question about it. And they got FISA warrants to monitor people that had the most tenuous of
What's
connections.
What's your evidence for the FISA warrants, Kerry?
Oh, it's come out. They've admitted the Department of Justice. It's come out. It's been there.
I haven't seen any evidence that has come out, but I do agree that there should be a special prosecutor. But the special prosecutor, is the one who will come up with that sort of evidence. But the Trump administration, the Republicans in Congress have refused to allow a special prosecutor to proceed. So I think the real question is why? Why does the Republican Party and the Trump administration oppose the creation and the mandate of a special prosecutor?
Well, we know why. We know why, because it's been abused in the past. It's become a major excuse for a fishing expedition, and the Democrats were instrumental in killing the special prosecutor law. Now here, the FBI obtained a secret court order last summer, this is in the Washington Post, to monitor the communications of an advisor to presidential candidate Donald Trump, part of an investigation into possible links between Russia and the campaign. All right, this is from the Washington Post on April 11th. So they were getting these warrants purportedly to monitor the people who they said they were, but knowing full well that any monitoring of that person would directly lead to the monitoring of the campaign. This is disingenuous, Professor, to say that they hadn't monitored Trump's campaign. So let's have three issues: Trump's connection to Russia, the Obamas monitoring of Trump and his campaign officials, and Hillary Clinton and the entire email gate that happened there, the WikiLeaks, the Clinton crime family foundation, which took bribes to do favors for foreign leaders. I mean, this has been written about extensively. Let's get it all into the open and make it a bipartisan investigation of everything that went on during this campaign. What's wrong with that?
I haven't said there's anything wrong with that, but I think your statement gets a lot of allegations and a lot of statements, and it's hard to know who's actually telling the truth. So I wouldn't make any firm statements about the Clinton Crime Foundation. I mean, I think that's professionals to make that conclusion.
Look what happened, Professor.
I don't think it's for you and me to make that conclusion. One could talk about,
You're being disingenuous here because
I'm not being disingenuous. The crime is a serious allegation.
Uranium One. Perfect example. She signs off on sale of 20% of the U.S.'s uranium reserves. And just happened that the Clinton Foundation gets a couple $100 million as right around the same time it happened, for some reason, from the principals to that transaction. And Bill gets a bunch of speaking engagements related to it. So, yeah. It smells
Kerry,
like a duck. It walks like a duck.
I don't read all the news events about anything. You just told me that you can't trust the press. So where are you getting this from? You're getting it from various press accounts from various sources, right? So the only way to know the truth about this is to actually have a special prosecutor gets all the evidence. I could make all kinds of statements about Trump on the basis of news report. But what I'm suggesting to you, if you're really serious about finding out what really happened, then you allow a special prosecutor to proceed. What has happened in the past few weeks is that the Republicans have refused to even consider a special prosecutor. So your inquiry should be why is that happening? Why are we not in the process of looking into a special prosecutor?
I'm totally in favor of it. Totally in favor of it, but I want everyone investigated with any connection to the election and, all of these suspicious things that happened during the election, which may or may not have been perpetrated by the Russians. Now we hear the private investigator for Seth Rich's family says that he was in touch with WikiLeaks. He had access to all the emails that leaked, or a good portion of them, certainly from the DNC. And this guy turns up dead on a Washington street, and the private investigator is alleging that the D.C. Metro Police Department's covering up and not really conducting a bona fide investigation of his murder. Let's get the special prosecutor involved there.
But look, you can make all kinds of insinuations and allegations and coincidences look like reasonable causes. I don't think we should be in the business in the media of trying to do this kind of guesswork. What we can do is say, this we know happened, or reliable sources say this happened, and then leave it there. I don't think we should be making any suggestions about plots, about conspiracies. I think that's one of the problems of the media.
All I'm saying is let's find out.
What you're going into, Kerry, is trying to make all kinds of insinuations by all kinds of causes. Now, I don't engage in that kind of process. I could do the same kind of insinuations with the Trump administration and the links of the Trump family, but I don't engage in that because I believe I should rely on hard evidence.
Right, and we do have hard evidence that
we don't. We just have press reports.
Uranium
You're just citing press reports. I think it's highly irresponsible to engage in that kind of conspiracy talk.
Well, look, that's what's been done with Trump all along here, that he's a Russian stooge. I don't do that. Well, but there is no evidence that he had anything to do with it. Nothing's come up connecting him with Russia. And every moment the press is seeing a boogeyman, a Russian boogeyman behind every door.
Nobody is seeing a Russian boogeyman. We know for a fact that Flynn had connections with the Russians. We know for a fact that the president himself fired him. That should be cause enough to find out what the Flynn connection actually is and what the relationship is of Flynn to the Russians and how come the president hired him.
All right.
That's all I'm saying.
And we
to investigate that, but whether Trump himself is a stooge, I didn't say that, and nobody should be saying that.
That's what the media is portraying him as, and you have to admit that.
Who?
Portraying Trump. The Times, the Washington Post.
Nobody has called him a stooge. Everybody has told him. Every one of those news organizations has said there is more evidence to be taken into account, and the president's accounts leave much to be desired in terms of telling the whole truth. So, isn't that true?
And I agree, there should be a special prosecutor, but I want him to investigate the Clinton Foundation, which needs to be investigated. I mean, the coincidence there, uranium one is a fact.
Why do you always talk about the Clinton and the Clinton Foundation, and you never go into the same depth of analysis with the Trump administration and the Kushners and Ivanka Trump and the business deals of the Trump administration and the Trump business? Why do you never go into the same detail and telling me about that?
Trump had one deal with what I would call questionable deal, but it happened so long ago, we don't know. The fact is, he sold a piece of property, what appeared to be at an inflated price in 2007 or 2008 before he
Why does he not reveal his tax returns?
Hey, I don't know the answer to that.
Don't you think it would be useful for the president who has worldwide business dealings for the American people to know what his taxes look like? How come every other president has released his taxes, but this one refuses to do so? What's the reason? Why would anybody not want his tax returns examined when he's running for the highest office in the land, and when to do so is a purely voluntary act of the person who chooses to run?
Absolutely, he should. Never said he shouldn't. All right.
Well,
but you're deflecting off of the Clinton.
Being said. I mean, you never seem to go into the aspect of the Trump mysteries and the Trump that we still need to uncover.
I totally agree. I mean, look, the whole West End project there was underwritten by the Chinese, and he had intimate dealings with them. I think that should come out as well. I want to know about all these guys, but getting back to Clinton, where you're deflecting from me, the Clinton Foundation, all right, benefited seemingly directly from the disposition of 20% of the U.S.'s uranium reserves. It's been documented. I'm not pulling this out of the air. There's a book about it, Clinton Cash. All right, Schweitzer did extensive research from public filings in the U.S. and Canada. There's no question that the timing of that transaction and the donations to the foundation were suspicious at best. I want to see all of these guys investigated, whether it's Trump, whether it's Obama potentially illegally monitoring or monitoring him legally under the guise of national security. I want it all out in the open. Why not have the special prosecutor have three specific areas of responsibility that he has to do? One, Clinton and her server and the foundation. Two, Obama's alleged monitoring of Trump, which appears to be a fact based upon the article in the Washington Post from April 11th, and all of Trump's potentially conflicting, troubling interactions with whether it's Chinese or Russian. I don't care. I want to know it all, but I want to know it for all of them. Let's not just single out Trump. True, he is president now, but let's get to the bottom of all of this disgusting business that took place during the last election and before.
I don't have any objections to a special prosecutor, but you still haven't answered the question: how come the Republican Party is stonewalled?
I'm not defending the Republican Party. I mean, obviously, you're in power.
And what I'm suggesting to you is that since we can't get a special prosecutor, it's very difficult to talk about any of these things and call them anything other than speculation.
Yeah,
until we have an official investigation, then we can talk about some things that are called crimes instead of calling crimes just off the top of our heads.
Oh well, I'm an attorney, and based on my
we need to talk about allegations as opposed to calling them crimes. Look, the fact that we start calling them crimes, is a spin that is very dangerous.
The possibility.
Crimes are things that people go to jail for. Allegations are accusations that are serious.
All right. They're very serious accusations that, if proven true, could indicate the presence of a crime. But the point is, if you want to start digging into one, in fairness, you have to dig into everybody because it's all connected. And why did Comey say that there's no evidence or that there was gross negligence, but there was no intent, when intent isn't required under the National Security Act, under the Espionage Act? Why did he do that? So let's investigate why he gave the Clinton campaign a pass twice. And the meeting of Loretta Lynch, former Attorney General, and Bill Clinton, just happenstance at the Sky Harbor Airport in Phoenix. Let's get to the bottom of all of it because it's all connected. And if you want to demand a special prosecutor, in fairness, you have to open yourself and your side up to the investigation as well. And look, let's not be naive, Professor. Politics and criminality, we've seen things happen in politics over the last decade or two and both parties for certain, and probably as much the Republicans are more than the Democrats, that certainly don't pass the smell test and certainly appear to be criminal in nature. You can't deny that.
Well, I can point out to all kinds of indications where people have been accused, politicians have been accused of crimes, and they've been found not guilty. So I do think it's very important to maintain a distinction. I don't believe in, criminalizing people through the media. I believe in criminalizing people after a proper legal proceeding. Before that, it's called an allegation. If you're a responsible journalist, as I was at Time Magazine, I never said crime. I always said allegation, or police accuse, or investigators say. I would never use the word crime until somebody is actually convicted of one.
Or indicted, at least alleged to be.
Indicting doesn't mean crime. It means serious accusation.
Well, no, it means that there is at least the prosecutor has determined and maybe presented to a grand jury that there's evidence of a crime that has taken place and therefore warrants prosecution. But, look, there's so much abuse in the
probable cause, Kerry.
Yeah,
probable cause is not guilt beyond a reasonable doubt.
No, of course not. But it's the belief by the Justice Department or the prosecutors that there's evidence that a crime took place. So, and
so that's why we call them allegations, and we don't call people criminals until they're convicted by a court.
Agreed. But some of this, look, we've seen cover-ups take place by the Department of Justice on both sides of the aisle for at least the last 25 or 30 years. And there's no reason to think that it's not still happening. And that's why sunlight is the best disinfectant, and we need to know what they've been doing, who's been profiting, follow the money, right?
Agreed. And again, I come back to the fact that there's a stone wall that nobody wants a special prosecutor. And right now, the major stonewalling appears to be on the Republican side. And so I think that's a fact that should be reported. And then people can reach their own conclusion as to why that is. There are certainly many allegations swirling around the Trump administration. There are allegations swirling around the Clinton campaign. But right now, the stonewall happens to be on the Republican side. And that's very troublesome.
That's what
particularly when you have some
do.
serious allegations made against this president. Yeah. And I didn't say he was a criminal, but there are serious allegations, very serious allegations pertaining to obstruction of justice and pertaining to revelation of intelligence. Well, I don't know whether that's actually happened, but those are serious allegations.
Well, you will confess that Comey was a controversial character at best, and that there were numerous calls from both sides of the aisle to get rid of this guy. And finally, Trump does it, and now all of a sudden, he's a hero. I don't understand that.
But the allegations were made months ago, and you have to wonder, you really do have to wonder why it took him 100-plus days to reach that conclusion. That's a legitimate question to ask, and every time the question has been asked of his spokespeople and of Trump, no consistent answer has been provided. Now, when you see an administration refusing to provide a consistent answer, then the press will want to dig further and find out, why don't you have an answer to this? Why? Yeah. It keeps changing. It kept changing all of last week, and it continues to change. And so and then when you keep asking the question, the answer says, well, it's been clear. The president has said, well, no, it's not been clear. So you have to keep asking the question. Just because an administration wants to move on is no reason not to keep asking the question. Why did it take 100-plus days? There's not been a consistent.
So if he did it day one, you would be okay with it?
It would depend what he said and what he did. But to say that 100 days plus into it, first it was Clinton, then it was this, then it was that, raises some questions about what was the real motivation. Yeah. And the reason it raises questions about the motivation is because the FBI is the lead agency that is looking into allegations of Russia complicity in the U.S. elections. And that's why it's serious, and that's why people are concerned about it, and that's why people ask, why is the administration giving inconsistent explanations? I think that's a reasonable thing for the press to inquire. Yep. It's a reasonable thing for the press to report, and it's a reasonable thing for people to think about.
Well, if he didn't have the history that he did and had done the things that he did, maybe, but there's plenty of grounds to fire him. I don't know that the inconsistent explanations are really grounds for or inference that something's being covered up. But hey, like I said, let's get to the bottom of it all. Let's investigate everyone fairly, have an impartial investigation with a special prosecutor, but let's have him find out about everyone, what happened in this election, because a lot of irregularities, a lot of strange things, you have to confess, happened here, Professor, on both sides. And we need to get to the bottom of it. Look, for instance, and I'm not deflecting off of Trump. I already agree with you, special prosecutor. But when you look at what the DNC did to further
Secretary Clinton... Why are you focusing on the DNC when we now have an administration that's Trump? That's the administration that runs the country. That's the administration that makes the decisions for this country. It's natural that people would focus on the one who actually won the presidency, because the presidency is the agency that affects the lives of Americans on a daily basis. Exactly. I don't object to looking at criminality wherever it is found. But why do you keep on harping on the candidate who lost? Why not look at the candidate who won? The candidate who won is the one who is running the country.
But does that forgive transgressions by the defeated party and the defeated candidate?
Why you keep harping on the candidate who lost?
Because we need to get to the bottom of it all. I've agreed with you that if there's criminality in the candidate who lost, there's every reason to go and look into the allegations there. But every time we talk about Trump, you seem to deflect it back to Clinton. No, absolutely not.
The president is the president of the United States and of the people.
Let's
take a look at what this president says, what this president does, and if there are any allegations of impropriety. This is the person who's making the policy for the citizens of the United States now.
Totally agree.
So that's why I get upset. You seem always to want to deflect it back to the candidate who lost, which is exactly what Trump does. So let's take a look at the candidate who won,
Professor,
and who's making the decisions for the country today.
I've already said it should be investigated, and we should have a prosecutor.
So I don't think there's any reason to go into this any further, Kerry. We agree that we need a special prosecutor to take a look at both. Having said that, there's not much more to talk about, is there?
Okay, I guess not. Well, hey, Professor, we always appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate talking to you, but I don't appreciate, not just going around and around and around. It's one thing to talk about alleged criminality. It's another thing to say we need to take a look at both. And once we agreed on that, that's the end of it. Let's get a special prosecutor and look at both.
Exactly. So we agree. We totally agree. So what's the problem? Anyway, Professor.
The problem is you keep harping back on the one who lost, but you never want to really concentrate on the one who won.
Absolutely do.
My concern is I agree that we should take a look at both. Having said that, there's nothing more to talk about. Instead of harping back on the one who lost, why don't you concentrate more on the one who won?
Professor, so we always appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. I appreciate talking to you, too.
Just tell us where we find your work, because I think it's very worth reading. You can find me at stpetersuniversity.edu. All right. And we will have a link to it in the show notes to this interview. I hope you'll come on again. I mean, we consider you a friend of the show, and we do respect your work and your opinions.
Thank you.
All right.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.